Hey everyone, good morning. I hope that you guys have been having a great weekend. Just wanted to talk a little bit about something that I've seen recently, maybe the past few weeks, people talking about the use of treats in training. And then basically saying, well, I don't want to use treats because I want to use praise, or I prefer to use praise. And there's first few things I want to say about this. The first one is immediately when I read it, my very first thought on it was, I don't use treats in training, I use food in training. Back to that in a minute. And then as I thought a little more about it, I'm like, well, you use food correctly and you're actually building your relationship. It should not be a bribe. It is payment for good work, right? Or good decisions. So I don't see a problem with using it as far as how it affects relationship. It should affect relationship positively. So that's really important. And what I really want to say too is that I use multiple drives, right? So and when I'm using these drives in my dogs or in my clients' dogs to help train, right? I want to make sure that I'm optimizing drives. So let's talk about that for a moment, right? So if I'm using social drive, right, I want to optimize that drive, and we could have a couple hour long conversation about that, right? But I'm definitely going to be working at optimizing that drive, right? The same thing I tend to use play in training, right? So when I'm looking at play, I want to optimize that. There's different, I think, types of play drive, right? Like I can kick into my dog's possession drive and use that in play, right? And again, if I have a dog that, has possession drive, I'm going to optimize it, right? So that I can use it effectively. I have dogs that enjoy working because I do a lot of dog sport, right? And a couple of my last two males I've had they like to work in aggression. So I've optimized their aggression, right? And I've actually channeled it into their obedience and gotten some really powerful obedience through that. But that wouldn't be possible if I didn't have a good optimized social drive with them, a good relationship with them, right? And then talking about food, right? This is why I don't like to say I train with treats. I will use food in training because if we're thinking about treats, oftentimes there's no real work ethic in the treats, right? In how the dogs are seeing the treat reward and how they're working for it. But when we use their actual food and that's how they eat, right? There becomes a work ethic behind the food drive, right? And so that work ethic is what's important if I want to optimize food drive. And actually, and the wrong way, what we're really kicking into as we continue to develop that at some point is preservation drive, right? And no, we're not starving a dog for weeks, right? Basically, if they're very brought up in this system and they readily work for food and they don't see it for free anywhere. And there are times when the work is very minimal. Just check in with me. I just want to have a relationship and reward you, right? I want to be the center of your universe in a healthy way. It's not meant to be this authoritative, I'm gonna, loom over you and you don't get your food if you don't please me. That's not it at all. I just want to be the everything good in your life, right? So I want the food to come from my hands for work. Obviously, with my IGP dogs, they also earn some food in tracking, right? But again, when this work ethic is there, when you finally then take a dog that understands that, and then they understand whatever task you've set before them, they're seasoned in that task. In the proofing stage, it becomes, okay, you decided not to do this. It's not for a basic mistake. Mistakes are a completely different thing, but you were not compliant to this. You basically made the decision not to do, right? I'm going to say, oops, and I'm going to put your meal away, and you're going to see me take your entire jackpot meal and put it away. And I'll come back in a couple hours. And generally that dog, before I even have a chance to ask them to complete their task, they offer it with power and at great attitude, and they want to do it. And then boom, they get their jackpot meal, right? And that's a way that we optimize food drive in training and why I say I don't train with treats. Now, once I have a dog really well developed in that system, can I use something high value to actually sweeten the deal? Of course I can, right? But again, if I'm using that high value thing before I teach the work ethic behind it, right, it means less. And here's my story to kind of make that point, right? Let's say that I'm out with one of my friends and we got, we're off kind of in a more secluded area, and somehow I get myself locked into this area that's a 10-foot fence area enclosed, and they're on the other side. And the only individual that has that key doesn't have a cell phone, and they're not going to be back in the area for a few days, right? Like 3 or 4 days. You're my friend and you happen to have a cooler with various things in it, and you happen to have a Starbucks iced mocha. That is my favorite thing in the whole wide world. You want to get on my good side? It's a grande iced mocha with 1 pump mocha, 2 packets of stevia, whole milk, and whipped cream. And I love it. It's like one of my favorite things ever, right? It's like dessert in a cup, right? So you offer it to me and I'm like, well, I had one while we were driving out here, and to be honest with you, I had lunch and so I'm satiated. I don't need anything. So you offer it to me, you're like, hey, if you would climb that 10-foot fence, I'll give it to you. And I'm like, nope, satiated, happy, good, had a mocha earlier. I'm really not interested. And the thing is that I don't like climbing fences, and I'm a little afraid of falling and breaking a wrist. And I'm not the most agile person, and I'm 51 years old. I'm not as agile as I used to be. So no, I'm not going to climb that 10-foot fence. Okay, and you say fine, and like, you go back to like just kind of trying to figure out how you're gonna make the best of this situation that I'm locked in. And after a couple hours, you go into your cooler and you offer me a roast beef and cheddar sandwich, which I love roast beef and cheddar. Okay, you offer it to me, but Tech, you got to climb the fence. Let's get out of here. And I'm like, no, I'm not ready to do that, man. By the way, you do give me a bottle of water for free, right? Like you just kind of push it through the fence and like, hey, drink your water, because you want me to stay hydrated, right? But I'm like, nope, not ready to climb the fence yet for that cheese and roast beef sandwich. And it goes like this, right? You continue to offer every few hours, offer me something, and finally midday the next day you offer me a tuna sandwich, because that's all that's left in the cooler now, because you had the munchies, and we're not going to say why, but you did. And you ate everything in the cooler except this tuna sandwich. And you let me know, like, this is the last sandwich. And now, this has been going on, probably close to 36 or 40 hours. And you offer me this tuna sandwich. And as an aside, I don't like seafood. I don't touch seafood. I can't stand seafood. I'm not allergic to it. I just can't stand it. I grew up in the Midwest. We don't do seafood. No, 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 no. Okay. So you offered to me, and I'm finally at a place where I'm hungry enough that, you know what, it's worth it to me to climb up and over the fence, and I will actually happily eat that sandwich because I'm hungry enough to eat, right? So did you starve me out for weeks? No. Did you offer me things consistently? Yes. Did you make sure I was hydrated? Yes. Okay. But here's the point in all this, right? In the beginning of this, when I was satiated, and I believed that, I would get food somehow, some other way, right? I didn't climb that fence for one of the things that I love the most, right? But 40 hours later, and consistent offering by you finally, all you have left is like this tuna sandwich that I can't stand. Like, and at least dogs generally like their food, right? But like, I can't stand it, but I'm ready to climb that fence for that tuna sandwich. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about putting work ethic into the dog, right? Like if I have dogs that are struggling with fear, right? I can't help, like generally food can be a very great counter conditioner. I can use it as a reward and perception modification. But if the dog doesn't have work ethic behind it, if they believe they're going to get a bunch of stuff free in the bowl later on, oftentimes if the dog is concerned enough, they're not even going to touch that hot dog or cheese that you drop, right? But after days of building, and days or weeks of building, you're working everything from my hands, right? I'm going to toss food for you. I'm going to name things and toss food for you. I'm going to build this thing where we start easy and we work up to this thing that you're a little more concerned about, right? Then I get those dogs to a place of where they'll eat regular food where those triggers are concerned. And eventually then I can even sweeten the deal with some very high value stuff after that, and they take it, right? So, but I'm losing that whole world of things if I'm unwilling to use food correctly, right? So that is what I would say about all of this. And actually, in closing, I want to share, I'm going to do a screen share with you guys, and I want you to see this. This story behind this is a Shiba Inu. His name is Buster. And this video is from about, I don't know, probably about 10, 12 years ago. Prior to being a dog trainer, I was a high school orchestra teacher, and Buster came in for training because his parents, they called me up one day and they're like, you had our son Kevin in high school orchestra. I'm like, yeah, I remember Kevin. And they were like, well, we figured you did such a great job with him, and we heard you were training dogs, and so, you know, we found your business, and we're just wondering if you can help us with Buster. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Come on, let's take a look. Now, the story with Buster is he's a Shiba Inu, and he was very cat-like, very standoffish about, you know, affection, relationship, food, all of it. Like, he just didn't care, right? And they were able to do my basic obedience class because we do use leash communication in our work, and we use praise in our work, so we can do those things. We can develop it without a lot of food drive. We can get through a basic obedience class, and they really didn't listen to my way of handling things as far as hand feeding. They were not able to be compliant about that, but it didn't hugely affect them because they were able to attain what they needed to in class. After that, though, they did see some of my rally classes, and they thought, this is really, really fun. I would love to be able to do this with Buster. And I'm like, well, you're going to need more food drive if you're going to do that. And so they went ahead and they took the class, though. They started, and first 2 weeks of class, he's not taking food. And let's talk about this. They were like, just experimenting with everything, right? So they would like marinate different steak in different marinades, try different cuts, and they would grill it for different amounts of time, just seeing what his favorite was, right? And the little booger butt, they would come into class and they would offer him a piece of the steak, right, that they had went through all these great lengths to prepare. And he would take it from them and he would taste it, and then he would spit it out, and he would just kind of look at them and then look away, like whatever, right? And 2 weeks of this, I'm like, guys, we really got to build the food drive. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, do you trust me? And they said, well, of course we trust you, right? So I was like, give them to me for 4 weeks. So the video I'm about to show you is 2 weeks in. Let's take a look. Screen share, good, it's all good. So I'm not going to maximize the screen, but let's watch this guy. I'm going to back this up. Here we go. It's from 2011, so 11 years ago. This is a dog that wouldn't take food, right? He wouldn't take steak, and this is not steak, I can tell you that. It might be Red Barn. I might have gone to Red Barn with him in this video. This long ago, I don't remember. But look at him. And this is also not a dog that's simply just being bribed. Like, he likes checking in. You can tell the dog, there is relationship building there, right? Here he's figuring out, okay, I'm not going to look out at the food. I'm going to look up at her face. He's trying to figure things out. Nice. He looked at me, boom. I haven't taught him to catch food. Let's see. Actually, as I'm reading, this was actually 4 weeks in. This was just before he was going to go home. So I was incorrect in saying 2 weeks. But look at the little guy. He's trying. just my 2 cents, right? Basically that, yes, when food is used correctly, we get some really cool things, and that it doesn't take away from relationship. It should add to the relationship, and that any dog can become motivated to work with you.
Hi, I'm Dana
with
Scott, and I'm
food
the
as a
founder of
possible,
Four Leaf Rover. And
reward,
today,
right? So, you know, again, I think it's worth building and layering different things. And when we're doing it right, they should all interweave and support each other, right? So it doesn't have to be one or the other solely, and that we can really optimize the relationship by using food correctly. And if we're optimizing relationship by using food correctly, we can get to a place where praise, we've actually taken the value of praise, just simple praise, and actually blown that through the roof too. So I hope everyone has a great weekend. Take care. Bye.